start off this painting, all I did was I drew what I want my main centerpiece to be, so the Saturn with the dinosaur on top of it. And then I just took a ruler and made lines down the entire thing without drawing over my design. And then I flipped my painting around and I did the same thing to make squares. I forgot to hit record when I was putting the paint down, but I just used neon pink and neon yellow so that when it mixed, it would create orange. When you're doing this, I highly recommend using two colors that will mix to create a color so that you don't get a muddy color. And I just took a hard bristled brush. I don't know exactly what they're called, but the bristles are pretty crunchy. And I just went over with it and pulled all the paint colors together, I guess. I don't really know how to describe it, but hopefully you can tell what I'm doing just by watching this video. Next thing I did was I just started to paint the ring around Saturn blue. There's really no special thing to this, no special technique that I'm gonna teach you. So yeah, it's honestly just on to painting the stuff now as you would normally paint anything. Now we're on to the dinosaur. Really the only thing that I can give you a tip on is just to use a really tiny brush when you are painting tiny things, I guess, but that's just kind of a given. It's just kind of common sense when it comes to painting, but yeah, just use a tiny brush if you're painting tiny things. Otherwise, I don't have any other tips because this is just a regular painting technique, I guess. And then we're finally on to painting the actual checkerboard background. I just used a brush that the tip is kind of flat, if that makes sense. I don't know how to describe it, but you can see it in the video. I didn't worry too much about what I was doing this first layer around, just because I knew that I was going to be painting the white squares white anyway, so if I got too much black into somewhere it's not supposed to be, I can just cover it up. Or if I missed a spot, I'm able to cover it up when I go back around. And then here I am just painting the white parts. So the reason I painted the white parts was because since I used graphite to draw everything, it kind of smudged around, so the background was no longer white anyways, and you could also just see the difference between the paint and the actual panel board. So I was like, I have to paint this, otherwise it's gonna look weird. And I only did one layer of white, which I should have done more than one, but I was really tired of this painting by the end, honestly. So you can tell that it's like the white is a super thin layer and the rest isn't, so that kind of sucks, but it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, I would recommend, if you're gonna do something like this, definitely paint the white if you need to, just because it might be smudged from the pencil you've used, or it just makes it look like it's done, I guess. I don't know. As well as when there's some like black that has gotten into a white square, you're able to cover that up really nicely with the white. Now to create the drips. So this is really hard to explain on video, but the first thing I did was I just like painted the top of the canvas just to make sure that the top was covered in green so that it looked more real. I don't know. But yeah, I just covered the like top edge of the canvas in green. And then I started putting really thick dollops of paint onto the top of the canvas and like wiping it on the front of the board, if that makes sense. You can probably tell from the video here. And then after I did this and I had as much paint on there ready to drip down as I wanted to, was I just took and I put my paper on the floor and then I hit the bottom of the canvas on the floor as well. You want to be careful with this in case your canvas might break if you're using a regular canvas instead of a canvas board, but keep that in mind and be ready to sit on the floor to like bang this on the floor, because if you do it on the table, I don't know, it's just harder to do stuff like that on the table because tables are gonna shake, or I don't know, you might be worried you're gonna break something, I guess. But you're gonna want to do what I'm doing right there on the floor. Now I'm on to the second to last step, which is outlining everything. I just used a thin Sharpie marker, but it kind of sucks using Sharpie fine tip markers on like canvases and on paint. I always struggle with it, but I don't have a paint pen, and this is basically the only thing that I have that'll work to outline currently. So if you are able to have some sort of paint pen or something like that, I highly recommend getting one for outlining stuff, because using a Sharpie kind of sucks. Because it's like the tip gets kind of like gunked up or something, so then you just have to like continuously draw on like the side of your regular paper, like a side of regular paper, so that you can continue drawing. I don't know how to explain it, but if you have ever tried to draw over dry acrylic paint with a fine point Sharpie, you know exactly what I'm talking about.